You said you would do it.
Yeah, nobody ever told me I was doing it.
Oh,
All right.
man.
That's fine. Whenever you're ready, man.
All right. What's up, guys? Shane and the boys here from the GnG Elite DBS team. I'm here with Markus, Danny, and Brian. And we're going to talk about some things today. And I'm going to hand it over to Markus.
All right, so one of the things we wanted to talk about was something that a lot of people have been discussing recently, and it's specifically what's happened with ARG and the organized play that's happening for the remainder of this season. For anybody that doesn't know, as you can see here on the screen, ARG has resigned as a premier tournament organizer for Bandai. And I think there's probably a number of factors that were playing into this fact, but the biggest thing is, especially if you watch the live with Anthony Hernandez, there's a lot of details going into it, and I think ARG was just kind of overwhelmed on top of everything. Thoughts?
I think it just had a lot to do also with the fact that the way that Bandai was running these compared to like how they ran for pro play games,
Right.
Making it to where for ARGs it costed $30 if you had the invite or whatnot. It just, from a business standpoint, I can definitely see ARG's perspective of not wanting to do that when they are also trying to start their own card game and just having to deal with the both, because I know the whole time, you know, they're looking at, man, the prizes for Dragon Ball isn't all that great, and it's not producing the turnouts that they want, I would imagine. Right. So it's just a hard decision to make.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of like a bunch of work that they have to put into it and not getting a lot of return. You know, like you said, from a business standpoint, that does kind of make sense. What about you, Brian? What do you think?
I think there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we'll never all know. But I think there's two main points that come out of this. First is I wholeheartedly 100% disagree with anyone who believes that because ARG is no longer an official Bandai tournament organizer that the game's going to die.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's a silly notion. I think these are the doomsdayers of this game. I mean, these are probably the same people that have been saying that the game's going to die since Colossal Warfare came out, and all those cards in that deck were trash that are now banned because they were so actually not trash.
Right.
The other, and with that too, I didn't watch the Jim and Anthony Hernandez thing because I just don't do live videos all that much, but like unless something's changed, haven't seen a notice saying, hey, ARG is not going to continue doing their circuit series. They're not going to continue doing their unofficial organized Dragon Ball Super stuff. So, you know, that's they may make that decision later, but that doesn't mean that's going away. And the other thing is, it makes sense. ARG, I don't think ARG could stay as an official TO for Bandai for Dragon Ball Super, because as Argent Saga, their new game, comes out, guess what? That means they're actually a direct competitor to Bandai in Dragon Ball Super. And it's kind of like there's definitely a conflict of interest there that the community is making it a bigger issue than it is, but I think it was inevitable with this looming conflict of interests that for integrity's sake was going to have to happen anyway.
And like, is there them from running unofficial Bandai events, like where they can run Dragon Ball, kind of like they do for Yu-Gi-Oh? They run their own Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. They even have their own Yu-Gi-Oh championship.
On that note, I'm not sure, because isn't there like some big specific reason as to why they don't run Magic?
I have no clue personally.
I know I've read some stuff about it, but I never cared enough to really dig into it.
So that's always a possibility, as well as ARG leaving kind of creates a vacuum where it's just pro play games. So the ball is like 100% in their court. And maybe Bandai could go like the way, I know that Yu-Gi-Oh! For their regionals, they have regionals, you know, multiple regionals every single weekend. So it would be cool to get to that point, and I think the way that they do that is by allowing smaller stores to host regionals.
Right.
Cough, gamers and geeks. Cough, big enough. Cough.
Yeah, so there's that would be something that they could possibly look at. Now, in order to do that,
5,500 square feet. Cough.
in order to do that, they would have to expand their budget and not blow it all on a celebration event.
Yeah, that was a bad.
I think it also requires more refinement and, well, honestly, I think before we could ever go to something like a weekly or a monthly regional hosted by smaller stores, I think what Bandai needs is a U.S. overlord or overseeing entity that's going to help facilitate the in-between, because right now, any issues with TCG Meister or tournaments is going through that TAC Games. Well, that's like the Australia's overarching body that handles all of their tournament organization, and now they're picking up the slack because of all these confusions, all the issues with TCG Meister. And I think if we're going to go to something like that, we need a US-based version of that, because even Australia is not going to understand the limitations better than Japan and Bandai people do, but not as well, because like Bandai, one of their big issues with dealing with the American sport is the idea in Japan, when someone wants to play one of their games, the biggest thing they have to do is hop a 3-hour train ride, and that's the full limit of their travel. They go, they spend a day, they go home, boom, it's done. America being as big as it is, the continental U.S. and even Alaska and Hawaii, since I know we have players in Hawaii, it requires a lot more planning, a lot more forethought. It's a lot more commitment in order to in these regionals. So they need someone here based that understands those hurdles and can address them, have plans for them, and then create floor rules that are more refined and defined than the generality that they have in there now.
That's reasonable.
Yeah. So who hosts the regionals over in California? Who's the West Coast?
Core TCG.
So I don't know if in this, I say vacuum, but I guess in this vacancy of a bigger company helping this, I think just from like a player aspect, obviously, but also like a business aspect, if one of those companies just stepped up, and granted, based on how they can accept that on whatever load they already have on top of them, I think that would help grow the community out, but it would take some time. And I think that could be a very beneficial thing to all of this happening to ARG stepping down from Dragon Ball Super.
Right. So,
granted, I do think it's worth noting that PPG already, PPG is based out of Miami. They already have gone, to my knowledge, the furthest they've gone is Dallas, and I mean that's pretty freaking far. So there's not a doubt in my mind they could pretty much take over the vast majority of that region that ARG was doing.
Yeah, but where PPG and ARG were able to co-mesh and commingle is, PPG would take a weekend, ARG would take a weekend, PPG would take a weekend, ARG would take a weekend, and it would seam up like that. So now in this vacuum, we just have the one side.
I feel like if one of the existing companies was to take on more responsibilities in regards to the vacancy left by ARG, it would probably stem from said company developing a team or a sector of their company specifically for organized play.
And on Danny's note, I do think that raises the bigger concern of the how short the organized play season is for Dragon Ball, and why those events have to be back-to-back weekends. Whereas if it was a longer, drawn-out season, more than 3 or 4 months, they wouldn't have to be back-to-back like that.
I agree.
Which also allows us to play competitively in more than just a few sets. Because let's be honest, not everyone likes certain decks and certain formats. For instance,
right.
Not everyone wants to play the decks that are in this format, but in next format they might be amazing. Well, unfortunately, or set 8 might be a good example. If there's no regionals in that time, yet set 8 is your favorite, you're doing well in, that's kind of where you're getting your growth. but there's nothing to play competitively. From just a player standpoint who wants to be competitive,
Well,
why play the game?
Fortunately, we do already have a tournament organizer that has helped to fill that gap, and that's PPG with their Pro Play Tour. That happened at the end of last season, and that their Pro Play Tours kind of filled out the off season of the official Bandai sponsored tournaments, and it was really effective.
I think though, again, I'm looking more long range, which is probably a side effect of me being a bit more long in the tooth than most players.
Oh, you're old. You're old. We get
I'm
it.
getting
You're
there.
old.
I'm not old yet, but if you're looking at long range of what's going to help the game thrive and grow, and what can be hurdles to it, and one of the biggest hurdles, particularly in competitive scenes and competitive games and anything, and especially if prizing increases to the way players want it, I don't think PPG can do it. And the reason I don't is because they also have a team, which means it creates a conflict. At the very least, it can create the appearance of a conflict of interest. And you have to have full transparency if you're going to want it to really forward and grow. And that was one thing that ARG was different. I mean, think about Nationals last year. Could George Machado have played in the Nationals and topped if he was the TO of the event? You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
And what happens, and what is it, I'm not, and again, let me just make this clear. I'm not accusing George or any of the PPG players of any foul play or anything. But what I'm looking at is the perspective that it can create. If like PPG shows up with 8 players and all of them make a top cut of 16 or something like that, it's not, none of them may have, I know I've spoken to a couple of them once or twice. I've played a couple of them. I don't hold any of them as immoral or whatever you want to call it players. I don't think they're cheaters or anything like that at all. I'm not saying that.
It could create that.
But people could start lobbying accusations based just on something silly like that.
Right.
And that can tear a game down just as bad as poor organized play. So it would be a situation where they'd either have to, if PPG was to take it over, I think they'd either have to cut their team or another entity would have to be there just to eliminate any potential future ishes.
It's kind of interesting because it already has kind of almost felt like they're getting rid of their team. Because, in the early year, like the first year of the game, they had, more players, and they still had a few more around Nats, but it seems like ever since Nats last year, their team's gotten smaller and smaller, and they've just kind of cut it down to where the team's pretty much just Marcel and Peter now. And even then, Peter seems to prefer doing other stuff. Marcel's really the only one playing, so it makes you wonder if that's what they're already kind of starting to do.
I don't know much about all of that, but as a whole, I mean, I don't think this means an end for Dragon Ball by any means, like you said earlier. I think it just means that we're going to be kind of in the dark for a little bit until we get more information as to how things are going to be handled. And I think this can be a learning experience for Bandai to make things better in the long run. But,
and just to piggyback on that too is something that stuck with me is George Machado actually posted a message. I think it was a comment in a reply somewhere on Facebook weeks ago about how he mentioned from he's like, Bandai is learning from all the issues that they're experiencing right now, and they've got plans to correct it for the 2020 season. And yes, that feels like 2019 is crapped on, but it's kind of thing where they're so into it already, and everybody's got, with all of these TOs having already booked event space and things like that, they're kind of committed to what they've got, what's here, what's now. So we got to see this through. I think as a player base, we in a lot of ways we give them the benefit of the doubt here, and we see what I've seen the promise of a better 2020 season. I'm willing to finish out 2019 and see what 2020 has to offer.
And you get yourself a medal card in Nats, boy.
I think if nothing else, we are at a huge turning point for the game, whereas 2020 is going to, in my opinion, it's going to make or break the true competitive scene for Dragon Ball Super. And I think that's where we're at right now. And honest to God, I think I believe the Bandai cares. I believe it's very evident from the celebration event, even though it might not have been the best financial move, it might not have been whatever we want to call it. When I went to the celebrations in Orlando, I felt the whole time like they cared. They showed us this cool video that some of the developers were there. They were talking to people. They were walking around, shaking hands. When I went to, like, I've been to a bunch of YCSs for Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been to Nats. None of that stuff ever happens. Like, you get to meet voice actors, you wait in a line, and you get a signed card at the end, and you shake their hand, and you leave. So I feel like they care, and I feel like they want to make this game, you know, maybe in the top 5 of card games, and I think it can get there. I just think we're in a turning point.
That's fair.
Yeah, I do think, like, going off what you said, it's kind of like, while this season is a hurdle to overcome for not only Bandai but for the players, it's gonna weed out the weak ones, I guess you could say, the flakers who are gonna jump ship very quickly.
And you know what? Something I've seen a lot of people talking about online that I think we should address too is, like, and it's a toxicity in the community that I think we really need to check. But it's people like, some people have been, yay, ARG's gone, ARG sucked, blah, blah, blah. And some people have been like, oh no, I'm going to have to quit the game now too because ARG was great, but PPG sucked. Like take your personal biases aside and look at this. How are their tournaments different? The only ways the official Bandai tournaments were different was side events, right? That was about it. And then if you talk, and then what else was kind of different? The Pro Player Tour versus the Circuit Series.
I think what a lot of people,
both of those can contain, both of those can. I think people just need to like focus on the game. It's not like I just didn't see that big of a difference going. I've been to both events, both hosted by both tournament organizers, and I haven't seen a vast difference where I would say this one company is vastly greater than the other.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people take for granted the fact that Dragon Ball Super wouldn't be as far as it is as a competitive card game if it wasn't for ARG.
Oh, God, no.
And a lot of people just kind of seem to forget about that. I mean, they supported the game for the first 3 set releases, essentially, before official organized play was announced. So, that's something to consider. But, I mean, I think we've about covered everything on that topic. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm pretty content.
Yeah, anything else?
The other thing we really wanted to talk about, something I think is kind of important, is the influence of Midas Killzone being banned and how that's going to allow new counterplay cards that are being printed in every color to affect the game. We'll start with one of the better looking ones, which is Denial of Hope. It is a red 2-cost counterplay. It says if your leader is red, if the battle card you're playing has 20,000 power or less, it is placed in its owner's drop area instead of being played. So it's similar to Preemptive Strike in that it's color specific. It costs 2 and it's double of its color, and it has a restriction on what it counters, but the restriction is different. Would you say this is better or worse than Preemptive in its design?
I don't actually know Preemptive's wording. Is it 4-drop or less?
Yes.
Or is it...
Correct. Unless you're me at a celebration team and you keep Preemptive Striking Rapid Onslaught.
Oh, sorry, you didn't God Strike a Victory Strike.
Speaking of that, Danny, did you like my little tag on the Facebook post?
So, Denial of Hope, I think it's, I don't know, I guess that's situational, isn't it?
I would say it's better than Preemptive in a vacuum.
If you look at the cards that Preemptive affects, majority of them are 20,000 power or less. Most of them are. And Denial of Hope can hit the same cards, and then some. This can hit Zeno, even if it was hard-casted, whereas Preemptive cannot. This can hit certain 5-drop and higher battle cards, like Bobbity, for example. 6-drop Bobbity, 1,500 power, can be countered by Denial of Hope.
Which is going to be super relevant in Dalen Max team turn.
Yep, absolutely. So like there are factors where denial of hope is more relevant than preemptive, but the biggest thing to consider is the decks that you might see denial of hope in. So the biggest one is Red Frieza Prison. I think that's where it's going to have the most impact, and I believe that we'll see that deck come into the meta as a real thing.
It's definitely going to be a contender for tier 2, 100%.
Like, you can play it in Pan, you can chain Zeno, awaken, untap,
And then
have
hold
this
it.
backup for their hit, and then play your own hit. Like,
Yep.
what the...
Now,
So
it is
I-
a little awkward to draw it defensively like any extra card is, but I do agree.
I think what, and this is kind of a preemptive on a lot of the preemptive strike, haha, on a lot of these counter plays. It kind of was, is like the cost. These aren't one drops, and
Right.
you know, preemptive. What made preemptive strike not that playable was a 2 cost.
Right.
And the reason that was so bad was, okay, it was twofold. One was the presence of battering laser.
Right.
That meant you could pay them and get nothing out of it if they had the battering laser. But the other more important part was, it really, I think it's really like that card and this card and many like it are going to make players change how they approach the game, because now you have defensive options that are different.
Yeah, I
But
think
they
it's going to
cost more.
present. I think it's going to present a much more skill-based, like a much higher skill ceiling to come from good players that we didn't get to see before, because there's going to be more interaction. When you eliminate cards like minus Killing Zone and Battering Laser, it opens up this window where you have to consider that, okay, well, if I just slam this here and he has Denial of Hope, I just lose. Or if I slam it here and he has Denial of Hope, am I still okay? And can I afford to play into it? Stuff like that. There are other counterplays, though, in red, so we'll move on to those. We have Helping Hand Son Gohan. It's 3 cost, negate an attack. Oh, this is a counter attack that plays itself. So, I mean, it's battle card being played during your opponent's turn. So that's not what we're really looking at. It's this Goku. That's the counterplay. So, multicolored card in your energy costs 1 less. When you play it, choose one of your opponent's battle cards. It gets minus 10,000. And then, if it's your opponent's turn, choose one of your opponent's battle cards. It gets minus 15 or minus 500 or 5,000. Excuse me. So it's kind of like a kill spell as a counterplay. It won't prevent any enter abilities, but at the same time answers things at a similar rate to Denial of Hope and whatnot, as long as you have dual colored energy. But where would this card be better than cards like Denial of Hope?
In your trash can?
Where it's going to be better is honestly, there's 2 places. One, we haven't seen yet. We're only we've got the Vegeta they've shown us from Draft Box 4, 3, whatever the one is coming out in September.
The multicolored one?
Yeah, and that's where we're gonna. I think as they move forward, we're gonna get more multicolored leaders, and then so you're gonna have more multicolored decks. And so that's, you know, the red Frieza Prison isn't really a deck built for multicolored cards, considering how many of them actually do have a low cost. And then so this is going to be a card that's kind of put in there into a red-green deck. Is really where it's going to focus early on. Is someone looking to have a little something, you know, this, or even honestly, in the right scenario with the right deck, and this is like straight spitballing. I mean, imagine something like a baby Vegeta deck with this, where it's already negging all over the place. Now you can neg even more your opponent's board. I mean, it doesn't get around barrier, so it's still.
Are there
guys
any
do the same
deflect
thing.
cards that we're interested in killing that can be killed with a minus 1500? Because that's what this
A
card
new
can
one.
do.
Some of this new set has some cards with
Right.
deflect that are lower lower numbers.
So in my opinion, that's how this card was designed. It was designed as a 2-cost counterplay that can hit cards with deflect under specific circumstances. Sure, it won't stop enter abilities, but the auto can still target the card with deflect, assuming it doesn't have barrier. It can make it weaker. So
So where do we rate this card out of 10?
Like a 3 until it shows some potential.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. I think this is not a card you even look at.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look powerful, but it's not something like the fact that it can hit certain cards with deflect is relevant.
So it's not good now, but there
Down the
could
road.
come a time where it is good.
Did anybody play
Would this be-
Batwing Laser in set 1?
If it costed 1, I would give it meh.
Does this card
If it cost 2.
remind me on the Red Frieza Prison? Is it 3 or 4 or higher that they have to be?
4 and higher.
I think
so
it's
you can't
4
play
or
that
higher.
deck.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those cards that it follows the niche of red,
Right.
of negging power, and it's a trash card.
It's just.
Alright, so we'll move
let's
on
go
to
to blue. Let's go to blue.
We have your Wide Open, which is a 2 blue counterplay if your leader is blue. If the battle card your opponent's playing has an energy cost of 4 or less, return it to the owner's hand instead of being played. So it is 90% of the time strictly worse than Preemptive Strike, but it fits the blue theme, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing. I think restricting card design to a theme wholly can be can lead to some imbalance issues, but it also keeps the card from going into the drop area, which matters against some decks. So like Shenron Gogeta, they can hardcast their 4-drop Shenron. If you counter it with something like Preemptive Strike or Denial of Hope, it goes to the drop and they can World Peace it back. With this, they don't have that option.
Yeah, but then they just combo with it.
If you attack them. That,
Or
it gives
they
you
one-star ball it away.
And like I said, it gives you lines for counterplay, plain and simple.
rate
Against
this-
certain deck strategies. But it's, in my opinion, it's definitely just worse overall than Denial of Hope and Preemptive Strike, because the lines where it is good are very narrow. I
They're
give
raw
it a
to
4.
I give
I
it
think-
4 too.
I
You
think
can play it, but
I think one of the aspects of it, though, is the idea that I like about both this and what we saw of the Denial of Hope is it's saying we're going to stick to our theme, but we want to give you these options in every color. But they
Yep.
want to maintain the theme, which is
Right.
I like that. I actually like the colors having a theme. I just wish they would say green's never been much of a big boy. Let's make him a big boy.
I think the card's alright.
Yeah, like, it's nothing fantastic, but it's not bad. And there may be a deck where it finds a home, and this is the difference. Like, for example, being able to play this in Gogeta Ramp.
I'll
Even-
play it in Janemba.
Even just the tempo advantage in Gogeta Ramp of being able to, like, land a Dragon Fist, attack with it, untap 2 blue, and then delay their bomb. Because you're already ahead on curve, and then being able to just keep them from playing something for a turn.
It also, it's like you mentioned the ones that have wish leaders, but there are so many cards now, like in the Boo engine, the newer Boo engine that can allow you to grab cards. And I think one of the other things that's also blue, that lets you grab cards like out of your drop and put them into your energy. This is a way to prevent that from being able to happen as well.
Yeah, there's all kinds of neat things that this card might be able to pull off. But we'll move on to the next counterplay, and I believe it's this one. So we got a Gohan. It's a Sun Gohan Future, so not very relevant card text in that factor. Saiyan Earthling counterplay. It's another multicolor one. If there's a multicolored card in your energy, reduce its cost by 1. When you play it, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less and return it to its owner's hand. Then if it's your opponent's turn, you untap an energy.
this is literally it's your wide open. It's your wide open, but better.
Potentially, yeah, because it only costs 1 blue to cast initially if you have dual color energy, and it untaps an energy and gives you a body.
Well, yeah, I mean, in
The
the end, it costs you 1 energy, but I mean, initially up front,
it's
you have
2
to be
up
able to
front
tap.
for sure. The fact that you untap one though is definitely relevant, of course.
So can I take back what I said about the other card being decent for Janemba and just switch to this card?
Well, okay, so something to consider here. It doesn't stop the card from coming into play, so you don't stop enter abilities. This will not prevent Chain Attack Zeno. This will not prevent hit.
Okay, the one thing that this card's missing that actually would have made it a legitimate contender is a quality card because of its wording. No, what it's missing off of its wording is ignoring barrier.
Right.
Because imagine if someone's already got like the Vegito or a Deadly Defender out, and they play something else, and you could actually use this to remove the Deadly Defender after they've tapped energy. It could allow, it could free you up for a following turn offensive push.
Yeah, something to note about this card, though, as opposed to your Wide Open. Your Wide Open requires your opponent to play into it. You can play this card on your own turn and just bounce something.
Yeah. If it had been ignoring barrier, this would have been one of the better answers.
It would have been one of the best cards for Janemba, for sure.
For Path. Yeah, to the blue-yellow build. Yeah. I'm going to take your Wide Open. Well, God, the fact that it just...
I'd leave this at a 4. As a counterplay, I'd put this at like a 6.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't ignore barrier, there's not that many barrier cards being introduced. And the ones that are in the game, there's only a handful of them that actually see play. And from those, there's only a couple of them that you really can't even bounce with this card.
This card's also less of a dead draw when you can at least combo it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
and you can just attack with it. You can kill somebody with it. Like
that was I think that was it. When we called the red one trash, I think that was an oversight on that too, because it allowed you to do the same thing is where you can actually put it in play.
That's why I didn't put it at a 1.
Nope, -1.
Put it as a 2.
It's just the fact that it doesn't guarantee answer an established board state. It's a situational removal based off the context of power values. Whereas this one is just 4 cost or less. Get it out of here.
Now I'm ready for some of the best.
The green ones are really good. I think Vegeta the Cruel is insane. We have I'm going to start with this one because this one's really good. Play this card, counterplay. If you have a multicolored card in your energy, reduce the cost of this card by 1. When you play this card during your opponent's turn, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less, KO it, and then they discard it, or then they warp a card from their hand if it's their turn. So you can just blow them out sometimes with this. And it's a body that attacks. It's got relevant text in the fact that it's a Vegeta, it's a Saiyan. There's a lot of good things going on with this card, and I think it's going to be huge.
So, okay, this isn't necessarily about this card, but there's one trend I'm starting to not like here that's very clear because I've never looked at these cards till now. I don't like that while, yes, these cards all answer the tempo plays, they don't solve the problem of boss monsters just ending game.
Yeah, that's why you got to kill them first, right? We already know that, Shane.
Yeah, but I don't like this.
I thought the whole idea of being able to play your boss monster out was being rewarded for living until your boss monster came out. There are options. When you play 2 Muay Taito in your skillless deck, you create options.
Mutaito actually answers boss monsters, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's your answer.
It answers
Gogeta.
2. It answers 2. It does answer Gogeta.
What?
No,
it does.
He's got barrier.
It gets around barrier.
Does
It ignores. Yeah.
I haven't played the card. I just assumed it didn't.
RTFCW.
Look, if you don't play it either, shut up.
The best. It is the best answer to Gogeta 7 and Height of Mastery.
Yeah, but it's also yellow.
Boy,
it is.
Played Storm. Shut up.
So this card is as good as it is. Again, what I actually think limits this card right now is I just don't think red and green go well together, and that's that's what the pairing is right now.
That's the point, though.
Yeah,
they don't want them to go well together because we've seen what happens when synergies get too good.
But blue and yellow has always shown synergy. The ability
the cards they're printing aren't very good.
Imagine if there was a blue and red card. If there was a blue-red card, you wouldn't play anything else other than maybe Victory Strike.
Give me green and yellow, man. Green and yellow, and I can make this card work.
Right,
all those blue and yellow cards that went well together keep getting banned.
Yeah. Goten, Unyield. Well, Unyielding's at 1, but Goten, Unyielding.
So
Legendary Flute.
The only way to make, from my initial first impressions, and I haven't put a lot of deck building into the multicolors, and it comes into play with this, is you have to lean heavy into the multicolored because one, almost all I think all the multicolored cards are 1+10Ks.
They are, yes.
So you're going to have to put more of those in your deck. That is a nice balance point. But now you give me this card that says if I've already got one, like I think every dual color now has one, says if you've already got a dual color in your energy other than this card, ignore energy exhaust.
Right.
Which is crazy.
I agree that is crazy and a dangerous precedent to set when they first released dual color cards.
But the thing about it, like I guess the balance of it still is like you're doing that and great. Now you've got access to 2 colors, and blue and yellow is broken together. I mean, being able to still use things like Crusher Ball, Mutaito, and Sensu Beam, and depending on your leader, you could either have the Whis negate or the Dimension Magic, Time Magic, Dimension Magic. This is like blue yellow is nasty.
But like, what's a blue yellow deck that's top recently?
But none of the good blue yellow stuff's out yet.
Yeah, and having access to blue and yellow, I mean, honestly, like, you take that plus getting rid of Battering Laser, and with the right deck creator, Janemba can just absolutely be broken.
Janemba is going to be very good in set 7. You heard it here first.
I don't think that.
I'll just go ahead and say
17th.
There will be a deck that's tier 1 that will play multiple copies of Vegeta the Cruel. This card is insane.
Like, the deck, or you
just this card.
It's a prediction.
Just this card.
I like it.
This card has
haven't seen enough
going on.
I like the card. I just haven't seen enough red and green good stuff together that in a consistent form that makes me have faith in this card.
This card also doesn't say it has to be red and green, and I know it's a weird statement because if you're playing green, you're probably playing red-green for your dual color, but there might be a tricolor strategy out there.
Stop breaking.
No, seriously, it's
stop
definitely
breaking
possible.
the game.
Like,
I mean,
it just says a
stuff.
multicolored card. It doesn't say green-red. And having access to blue gives you untap effects. So,
and even like you just said, veggies. You building a modern veggies, there's still a
Blue,
chance to
yellow,
add
green
green.
veggie.
Putting green in there, yeah, it can be nasty.
So yeah, that's just my opinion on the card. This is probably my favorite card from the new set that isn't an SR.
Solid 9. Solid 9.
I'm gonna tentatively give it a 6 or a 7, just because I think it has potential.
Right.
I just don't think we have the tools for it yet.
I just see hand control and board control being incredibly relevant in the coming format, and this card does both of those things with no downside.
It does, but again, out of a crazy tricolor situation, let's if you take the overarching themes, what you have here is a green, which is board, hand, destruction control.
Just destruction in general.
Yeah, it's destruction with red, which is realistically more of an aggro deck. Granted, if you get a lot of the neg red stuff, of board destruction, and you kind of have to. The only way this is going to work, I think, as a really viable, is leaning hard into the destroy, and just.
It's in a control deck for sure.
I'm calling it now. The Chile leader is going to take full advantage of this, because once you start being able to not have to cast your guys, you freebie cast them, then you can bounce back on
2 or 3 of these every turn.
Like that Broly hand control deck that's out there, that's like it's okay, but it's not the best. This flips that.
Now, granted,
if only we still had Child's Wish to do Hellfighter shenanigans.
We are going to be in a format where boss monsters are relevant, so the control decks that want to play this card need a way to close out the game, because they can't sit around and durdle while their opponent casts a Gogeta 7, right?
No durdling? Damn.
This card just gives you a way to technically recover and gain some advantage at the same time. And so doing 2 things for the price of 1 card makes a card powerful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree. Again, the other hiccup I is I don't find the Warpa card too impactful, because ever since the release of Destroyer Kings, what we've seen is the growth of decks that are all about building hand size.
Right. So
I
used to agree with you on that, but there's a very unique factor that a lot of people don't seem to consider. This type of effect doesn't go in a deck by itself. It is a multiplicative effect. It ends up stacking up over the course of a game with several other similar effects to end up in a position where it mattered because you did it X number of times, right?
Yeah,
So,
and
and they're
that was kind of
including
my
so
point.
many new cards that attack the hand in this next set that
Including the other counterplay that we have for green.
Just as an example, the deck that I've been playing recently, one of my favorite decks right now, is the Lemon Lime Golden Frieza deck. It has a total of 7 cards in the deck that can make your opponent discard cards. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone for game when my opponent only has 3 or 4 cards in hand, and they may have been drawing a bunch of cards. Their leader may attack on the front side and draw a card, not caring about anything. It may be skillless, but they have 6 or 7 cards as opposed to 13. Like, it adds up, and it makes a difference.
Agreed.
Fair enough.
And this is just another card to go along with that same idea that if you find a shell where you're just incidentally taking cards out of your opponent's hand over and over and over, it will add up. But
Fair enough.
I do get what you're meaning. Because we haven't seen what the coming decks can do, and they may outclass this sort of hand control. It's very possible.
I think my main, and where I was going with that is I think you have to lean hard into the hand destruction for
You're
this
right.
to be
I agree.
a good one.
Yeah.
So as Danny mentioned, I think we should move on to
Yep.
that. The one that I actually like better of the 2 green ones.
Yeah,
See-
to the better one.
I don't like this one better because I don't like giving your opponent player agency in the outcome of a situation. I'm not playing a card with the intent of letting my opponent make the decision. And that's what this card does.
I
But-
like this. I like this better in tandem with preemptive strike, because where preemptive strike leaves off, this can kind of pick up, because this can answer boss monsters in the right play. Can you imagine dropping this against someone who just dropped Broly
No, I
Does
agree
the
with
rare
that
Broly?
for sure. I do like
and just
that
emptied
idea
their hand?
because it is a cost. Yep, that's a very good example. The fact that you can hold up both and your opponent doesn't know which one they have to play around is relevant for sure. One thing that, if I'm not mistaken with this card, if your opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, or let's say they have 1 card in hand, right? Can they just like say?
No, it's enough.
What's the exact wording? Your opponent.
It says that your opponent chooses 2 cards in their hand.
Then
They have to
Right.
choose
So
two.
the wording on it says they may place it in the drop area. If they didn't, your opponent then does this. And the way Dragon Ball cards are worded, what comes first matters a lot. So this saying they choose whether or not it goes to the drop first and then fulfill this effect very well could mean that if they have no cards in hand, well, I just don't discard any. Right? Because it's not, the stipulation is choosing what comes first. Are you putting it in the drop or not? Now they can clarify it and make it work the way we think it does. Oh,
The one point you were kind of making about the place with the payment is, so the payment is in regards to the effect. So it says they may place the card in the drop. If they didn't, is after it, but that means that's the trigger. Is if they place the card in the drop, the rest of the card does not trigger.
right.
But
And
if
that's
they
just
don't,
like, that's a logical way of explaining the card, but this is a Bandai game. And they've made some weird rulings before.
Fair.
So I would not be surprised to see them say, like, they choose first and then you pay X. And I also would not be surprised to see them say, like, to clarify it and say they either have to discard 2 or it goes to the drop. Because if you look at the way, like, the 5-drop Beerus from Tournament of Power was worded, that was a huge misconception because it was worded completely differently from the way it actually works.
So with that, what I say there is this is honestly, the people that would argue what you're bringing up, honestly, are people that are trying to win the game by semantics. It's clear what the intent. It's like I'm sorry, outside of any person that's trying to parse it semantically, it's clear what this card's intent is.
Okay, well, I mean that's a matter of opinion because people interpret things differently. In my opinion, and technically the game is all semantics. It's all about rules.
If we take the ruling from the mirror creator absorb, right? So it says
there actually is a ruling for that.
Yeah. I think it piggybacks off of another ruling.
Because I looked up like 7 different cards that were all similar and how they were worded, and I couldn't find any clarification for them.
I'm pretty sure there's a clarification, but it's
what
like
was it that you saw?
You warped the 3.
Right, even if you have less than 3?
Yeah, because you fulfill as much as the card text as possible.
Right, so if you have 0, well, you discard up to 2 because you don't have
but
the
it
full
doesn't
2.
say up to 2.
Right, and neither does Mirror say up to 3.
Well, those won't say up to because they don't refer to like, hey, damn,
That's correct. But that's where the confusion comes in.
Man, fucking Panda.
But regardless, I do like the card, and if they word it, or if they clarify it, I think it definitely goes up to like a solid 7 for me.
I'm gonna leave it at a 6.
I like it as a 7 or an 8 as a side deck card, honestly.
Sure.
It answers boss monsters, and I'm happy.
That don't have deflect.
12 out of 10. Give me again.
So I think now we have yellow, right? Which has my favorite counterplay. Nope. I hate that card.
Champa, I'm going to start with Kefla's Fury because it specifically fits in one deck. It's not very good in that deck, but it
can fit into any yellow deck.
It can fit into any deck playing yellow. The first one that came to mind was Mecha Frieza.
No.
But the problem is, since it's double yellow, you can't reduce it to cost of 1 on the front side. So you take a life to draw 2 cards on the back side. And that's not bad. In a lot of situations, you need that card advantage. But if it's worth slots in a deck, I don't know. I do like the idea of just like, in an early game situation, your opponent's just playing something and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to draw 2 while you do that. Like, that doesn't seem bad. It seems like a solid like 1 or 2 of in a deck to fill out some numbers.
I give it a solid 3.
Yeah, like a 3 or a 4. Like, it's not a game breaker, but it's like, it's just fine.
Coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm a huge advocate for anything that says pot agreed, hence why I love the Shinron leader.
But this costs energy.
But, yeah, for 2 energy, which means if I can't, like, when am I going to cast this when it's
and
energy
you can't even
efficient?
splash it because it's yellow.
Right.
Yeah, like
this feels like it feels like something you'd only cast in like the late game because you don't have anything better to do.
I think this is a filler card. I'm not even going to give it a whatever I just gave it. It's a filler card.
You're not awakening to hold this card up, that's for sure.
I mean, you never know.
I want you to know that because you guys have poo-pooed it so much, if you do a pre-release, you're both going to get a stamped version of this card.
And I'm going to play it.
So I will get it PSA graded. I'll get it PS or GSA graded, and you know.
Before we jump into the other one, I want to note that though it's because it's on the screen, the Hidden Ambition Zamasu, even though it's not a counterplay, it's one of those piddly cards, 2-drop with at 4K power that has deflect that we were talking about earlier.
But it also has barriers, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah, so that doesn't even do anything. And it has indestructible.
It has all the text that makes the Goku irrelevant.
But this is one that where you yeah. Alright. It has alright, yeah.
I know what you meant though.
So Champa the Trickster is my favorite counterplay because good lord am I all about just screwing over Path to Greatness and drawing some cards.
Yep, so it's very, very interesting how it taps down any sized battle card, ignoring barrier.
And ignoring deflect.
Yep, it ignores barrier and deflect, so like they're like, go do the 7, and you're like, tap that bitch down. And they're like, now I shuffle my hand back. Proceed. You know? So I do like this card, it's very powerful, and it'll definitely see play. But what deck do you think it's gonna see play in? Janemba?
Janemba, like blue yellow Janemba at the time of recording, which set 7 hasn't come out yet. Mono Blue Janemba is, in my opinion, and in multiple other professional Janemba players, Dehon and them.
Would you really play this card over the Frost one, though?
What?
I don't know what he just said.
in Janemba.
He said the frost one. I don't remember what the frost one is.
What is the frost one? Does it tap down
Frost,
path to
deadly
greatness?
poison.
It's
Okay,
an egg-
tap
is it
down
a-
path
Oh,
doesn't matter when they have to
the
go
blue
something
yellow
like
one. Oh yeah, there's a
Yeah.
3-cost blue yellow one that is cold bloodlust and taps the card down and draws you a card.
And it untaps one or whatever if you're like the
That card's a promo, I think. No.
What's it called? Frost?
Frost, deadly premonition or something like
Yeah,
that.
Frost Deadly Poison. It's a 3-cost counterplay that taps a card down, and is negated, and it's a counterplay, so it bypasses barrier but not deflect, and it draws you a card and untaps an energy if you have 3 or less life. And I could see you playing it over this card because you can combo with the other card.
Yeah, okay.
Like, this
I
card's
like
good.
Frost better personally.
It's also
Alright.
relevant to note that it's blue-yellow, and so it comes in play tapped as a...
And it is 3 energy.
It becomes 2 with a multi.
Well, 2 when you're at 3 or less life.
Oh, you're talking about the frost. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the
the frost is just a hard 3. I do like the fact that it has energy exhaust, so maybe that has the premise to make it a tad bit better. But I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to say that the other one is better.
So this champ is like an 8, for sure.
Oh,
So
yeah, I'm
so-
giving it a 9.
I want to point out a little something I learned from Ohio, kind of in the heat of the battle and prepping for Ohio, that put this card and that is interesting interaction that people have whined, complained, lamented about, whatever fancy word you want to use here, is even if you miss, maybe you don't have this in hand when path hits the board, maybe you want to do this against Height of Mastery because you're about to lose the energy anyway. Well, the thing is when you put it in, when you tap it down, obviously if they're playing Broly's skill can stand it back up, but it can't because of for your opponent's turn. But oh no, my Broly opponent awakens, and they untap 2 to get the Vector. They evolve into the Victory Strike and then untap it.
Yep.
Fellas, I'm here to tell you guys, to anyone who listens to this, there's a strategy to deal with that. There's a way to deal with that. Don't let them awaken on the same turn.
Yeah, you just got to be aggressive.
No. Okay, that's one strategy, be overly aggressive. But another strategy that you can help control the game is to be under aggressive, to be more controlling.
It is possible.
It doesn't really work
It's hard
against
because
Broly.
Broly's like turn 4, they've taken 4 life.
Yeah.
It's true, but here's the thing: when you're doing that, if you're just attacking as normal, they get to see a lot more cards because they're taking their own life, and you're giving them life.
Right. It's just one of those things where that requires you to have a specific strategy because you can't just go to the late game against a deck like that and expect to succeed if you're not playing your game plan because you're choosing to be passive. You know, so your deck has to be able to do something.
I think you're misinterpreting me there, and I agree with that. I'm not telling you to change your game plan. Don't switch horses in the middle of the stream or when you're almost to the other side. Go into the stream with the right horse.
But I don't want to play a slow deck.
Other note, just to get off of Broly, even though I hate that stupid Victory Strike deck, it's also good in the Gogeta to 7 because if you draw it, it replaces itself, which I feel like is relevant.
Yeah, drawing a card is always good. Cards that replace themselves are super relevant.
And it's a... Hang on.
It's a god.
And it's a 1500 attacker.
It's a god.
So,
It's Universe 6. You can play it off of Khalifa and Veggies.
hell, you could play it off Chain Attack if you really wanted to. I mean,
That's some energy inefficiency right there.
I didn't say it was good. I just said it was a thing that you could possibly do.
I think the only I might be the only one on this boat, but I think all of these cards that are in this niche of 3 costs that go to 2 costs with multicolored, I just haven't seen anything in the multicolored that's made me stupid excited yet.
I have.
and I get that some people have. I try, I've dabbled in the multicolored, and because of that, they all of these cards get kind of a -1, just because for me, and I get the balance issue. The multicolored hasn't excited me as much because it represents the need for more 1+10Ks, and I don't like, because in my mental makeup of building a deck, I often treat a 1+10K similar to an extra card. Because of the energy required to make it effective, and how cost restrictive it can be to use defensively, and when you end up with too many of them in your hand.
To be fair,
So
there is the flip side of that, where they can make or break the difference between all-inning or defending against an all-in, because they're worth more per card. I can't tell you how many times I've all-in a deck like Frieza, or like Dende Frieza, and them just like pay 1 combo, pay 1 combo, pay 1 combo, and all of a sudden they've got 40,000 in combo power and only used 4 cards. Things like that can happen. So like it does have a flip side to it, but I get what you're saying. Usually, you don't have the freedom to spend a bunch of energy on combo power.
Yeah.
So that's only my that's my
That's
opinion on it, and I just that's the only thing that I do like the card design, but because of the way my brain's thinking about next set, I see it as a 3 cost, and that makes it really cost prohibitive.
Competitively, I think this card's pretty meh at best. Like, I'd rather just play Mutai Ito for 1.
But it doesn't draw you a card.
Yeah, I don't care. I'd rather play it
and
for 1.
And it puts itself in the drop area.
Mutai Ito only hits things that exceed energy limits.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that is the downside to it. If they get
I'm still
Oh,
to that,
just not that hyped for Champa.
Regardless, we got black cards to look at, so...
That's a lie.
An unexpected turn is going to change the way the game plays in regards to aggressive decks and how they have to combat the hate for them. Bandai obviously does not like people dying on turn 3. You would think they did with all these aggressive cards they print, but this card says otherwise entirely.
If they don't like people dying on turn 3, they need to ban Senzu Bean.
Right. An unexpected turn says counterplay. It's a 1-cost black card, so any deck can play it. If your opponent has 3 or more battle cards in play with energy costs of 2 or more, the battle card your opponent is playing is placed in its owner's drop area instead. Then choose all battle cards with energy cost of 2 or less, ignoring barrier, and send them to their owner's warps. So this says fuck skillless.
This card is a staple.
Oh,
super glad I just got my my 1-drop SPR Gokus for skillless. That's awesome.
You can play around it because it doesn't count the 1-drop Goku or Android 8 towards the total needed to trigger the requirements to cast this.
Yeah.
So you can play around it, and like if you just spam 3 drops, it doesn't hit those.
Yeah, just go tall and what?
Right.
Or yeah, so it doesn't hit them, but it's still, as soon as you hit that like the 3 threshold, then boom, everything's gone.
3 or more with a cost of 2 or more.
And I also think that this could be good against other decks too that have like, God, it's so, this card is so weirdly worded, like by flipping its requirement with what it gets rid of.
Right. What do you think, Brian?
It's
another black catch-all.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing, like, I don't know. It's so, like, it's not that much. I would rather play the anniversary box Kai than this.
It's like super convoluted and situational, but it's so powerful when it goes off.
It's okay. You tap. Granted, like if you have, I mean, they went wide. Whoop-de-doo.
The biggest thing is that it warps the cards, so in like a lot of situations, they don't get those cards back ever again. But one of the things I hate is that it really just kind of poops all over green, yellow, lemon, lime, golden Frieza.
We know you're trying to make that deck really good, man.
It poops on that, but I mean, it is another answer. Like, it is an interesting answer to skillless because like it's not only that's its biggest
It's good against Scuffle Time,
impactor.
too.
Yeah, well,
Ooh.
Because it hits everything ignoring barrier as well.
yeah. So it can
And it warps the cards.
I think honestly, it's looking at this pre-meta, pre-established meta, solved meta, however you want to say it. I think it warrants a 2 of in essentially every sideboard.
I could see that.
Yep,
Yes.
I agree.
And because of so I mean honestly, if you say that right out the gate, then your answer is this lower than a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, no, definitely not. It's at least an 8.
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say I think it deserves a spot because it's too good into what it's meant to be good into to not side.
It's a silver bullet.
But yes,
But it's
a silver bullet that doesn't directly kill you.
It fits
or
in too many different
win you the
guns.
game.
It's also it's not, I wouldn't even call it a silver bullet as much as a silver 6-shooter. Because it goes against so many, like veggies. Oh, it's good. You know what I'm saying? Like you can impact veggies. Oh, you just played that. You played your 2-drop green and this is going with an old format, but you played your 2-drop green kaba. Now you've played your red veggie. You played your red cauliflower. Oh, now you're going for that other kale or that kaba. Well, I'm going to play this now and get rid of a couple. Get rid of the kaba, so your chain is impacted on future turns.
It's a wide net is what it is. It's not a
Right.
bullet. It's a wide net that does effectively exactly what the card is designed to do. And while I think it deserves a 2 of because you don't want to get caught into wide decks, there's always inevitably at an event someone running veggies because it's still not a bad engine.
They just
Someone
banned
just needs to
Shugash,
break
though.
it again.
You know what? I think you guys have messed me up. I think I'm gonna have to main deck this in my special sauce.
Oh,
You
God.
don't, I'll kill you on turn 3.
And it's a 1-drop, and it's a 1 cost. I'll
Yep.
give it that. The fact if it was a 2 cost, but it's a 1 cost, and good lord, is that
See,
amazing? So I think it's a solid 5 or 6.
A 5 or a 6?
Yeah, man.
This card
I think
is like
the-
10
I
out
think-
of 10.
No, shut up, Shane.
This card is I think a 5 out of 6 is. I think this card is actually too good to rate that low.
Oh
Like,
man, I just
It is out of all
If you
the
see it
counterplays.
coming, though,
It
you
is the
just go
most
tall.
impactful. But how many decks can go tall and or why? Like how many decks
skillless.
are?
Skillless. The deck that it's meant to be. I can go. Oh
What-
man, like that's when
What
you're
is
playing
what
this
does going
five,
tall look like? You get 1 or 2 3-drops out, 3-drop vanillas
You
out
play
there.
your 30K and then you go double ball, double strike, 60K, do something.
Danny, I need
But
your
this
face
is-
to stop looking at me like that.
So they can. I mean, they're going to counterplay and then they're going to negate and be like, "Oh, that was sweet, that was cute. Now try to do it again next turn."
And then
Well,
Because-
okay, so the problem is once they've
because it
resolved
doesn't
once
count the
against skillless,
Gokus. It
it'll probably once they
Why
do-
doesn't it
once you
count the
resolve-
Gokus?
Because it
Because-
doesn't count 1-drops and lower. It only counts 2-drops and
Oh.
higher towards the total amount in play to be able to play the card.
Mic drop.
So, like, if you go Goku, Krillin, play a 2-drop, and then use Goku's skill to get a 30K, they still can't play it. And then when you play your next 2-cost or higher, they could play it.
Yep. So you can have 2 30Ks out, which doesn't seem crazy, but like that adds up because you could start getting that 30K out in turn 2,
But
especially in games 2.
once this card resolves, you probably lose, though. Because it warps
Do
your
you
it
in
warps your
skillless?
vanillas.
But so yes, it does. So ideally, though, if you're gonna play into this, then you're gonna have to just accept the risk of not playing your whole entire vanilla package out, because then you can just play cards like Power Burst and get your 1-drops back from the warp.
No, I agree.
And
So I think a deck that this slides into perfectly right out the gate. Again, with a little bit of I'll sprinkle my bias in here. How does this not go into a Chile Limo deck that's already playing Oob to handle the other stuff? You've got the Oobs out to handle those piddly little drops.
I don't know if you need it, honestly.
yeah, you don't.
Between
Why
Oob and
make?
a kind wish? Do you need?
You
this
already
card?
have that. You already have a much better version of this card that essentially costs 0. So
Shocking.
It
you don't-
costs 0 when
But can't happen till turn 4.
turn 4. This
Yeah,
gives you
You just play the Kai.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
the Kai. The Kai. It's like the Kai can the Kai doesn't stop the going tall either.
There is something to note about this card in that it counters the 4th card played, regardless of what cost it is. They could be playing a big beefy 5 drop, and have 3 or more, other 2 costs or higher in play, and it just puts that guy in the yard. It don't care.
So if you didn't have it the turn that you needed it, in case they already went and you drew it,
Right.
yeah, I see that. I'll give it a 6 to appease Brian, so he doesn't kill me the next time I see him. But a 6. So the Toa Dimension Leaper
card is
awesome.
FYI, I want to say, I'll leave it at this: that card is probably the best counterplay we've talked about so far.
What,
an
an unexpected turn?
Yeah,
Yes.
probably. It's the most versatile. That it doesn't have a leader requirement. It's not a color specific. It goes in so many different decks. Because of its flexibility, it probably is the best one we've talked about.
If you look at it like that, then yes, I can agree. I agree.
This card's pretty neat. Blocker, Revenge, Counterplay. Choose 2 cards in your drop area, send them to Warp, play it. So it's a 2-cost counterplay that can go in the mirror deck, but a Revenge blocker that you can play on your opponent's turn is super relevant.
Oh, very much so.
And
And it
Revenge
fits
gets
into...
around barrier, doesn't it?
Revenge blocker does get around barrier, yes.
The only problem with this is that I feel is it does Jack Squad against a boss monster unless they like play something piddly next to it, because when you if you counterplay it, you've missed the blocker window. You've missed the blocker activation window.
Wait,
Well, it's not a counterattack. It's
not a
counterplay.
counterattack.
counterplay, not attack.
It's when they play the card.
Okay, then ignore it. Can you edit out everything I just said there? Yeah, sorry. My brain was somewhere else on it, but yes, we'll just edit out everything I just said there.
I like
that'd
that
be
it-
great.
This is the best answer to go G to 7.
It is, definitely. They're like, play my
Mind
thing, shuffle your hand back. Well, I'm going to put this into play first, but okay. And then they're like, okay, well, your turn?
And it fits perfectly with leaders who untap 2 and awaken. I
Now,
like that too.
to be fair, it doesn't completely neuter go G to 7 because, like, it's really easy to play around.
Right.
Does it have barrier too, or is it just
No,
blocker?
it's just a block
No.
of Revenge.
Okay, so
So they have like the Vegeta out.
right. Well, they have to hold up and at all costs or go G to 5 in their hand for the following turn, and then they just get rid of it and kill you.
Yeah, but then when you play the second card that answers the first one, you play another one.
But it is worth noting that this does slow them down a turn, and that's
No,
relevant.
for sure. I agree. It's a super
For
neat card.
Janemba, this is nuts.
There is a card here that we can talk about because it's a really weird card. It's the newest counter.
The only counter
Yep. What do y'all think of this card?
is stupid. It's no good.
Choose 3 battle cards with an energy cost of 3 or more and power of 35,000 or less in your drop area. Place them at the bottom of your deck and play this card. This card can be played from any area. Can only be played with counter, and you can only control one of it.
It doesn't make any.
It's just for Janemba.
Seems meh.
What?
But it's not a good one. Like,
It's not
like,
good.
Seriously.
It's just like,
Here's the.
what do you
if
think
they
your
had
thought
made it-
was behind this?
If they had made it 4 battle cards, first off, that would have made it better. Because, like, I'm paying an energy, and, like, it's, like, they have to trigger a counter to do this. And if you think, if Janemba's playing blue-yellow now, then you know that stupid counter is going to have the one that mills. So it doesn't shut down their ability to mill me. So it really only pluses 2 back to my deck, which is 1 resolution
You just
of their
sideboard
leader
4 of
swing.
them.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't feel like it. Like that's like where Janemba is at. The way to counter it is you've got to have some cards that, granted, should cost energy, but they should be able to. You should be able to put cards back if you focus on that as part of your strategy. You should be able to put cards back faster than they're taking them out. It doesn't work. This doesn't do that.
I didn't think it was a good card, but I wanted to bring it up just because it was kind of weird.
Its actual name is Vegeta making an entrance to the trash can.
he is a Vegeta Xeno, and the only good one is the championship pack one. So
Yeah, so now that we... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that, though, I want to actually talk about something that had been on my brain, which is counters. And I get that Battering had to go because of its cheap cost. It's not as cheap as people make it out to be because people always seem to forget or never count the I have to pitch a yellow as part of the cost.
Yeah, but that isn't part of the resource management aspect.
I get it,
So.
but I understand it had to go. But here's my thought: is what we need, what I would like to see. I'm not gonna say we need it. What I would like to see is some form of something like a counter, but its energy is something like X or 1+.
So you're saying syncopate?
So like the energy cost is X, and it says in the skill that X equals the cost of the counter card, or the cost +1 of the counter card. So that
+1, I like that, because at a minimum
you could say
2.
Then you could say 1+. So you'd put the energy as a 1+, and then in the skill it said 1+. The cost of this card is actually is the energy cost plus the amount of cost there. That way we have the counter, because I honestly think having a counter increases interaction, provided it's not excessively more energy efficient.
Right.
Play.
I can agree with that to an extent. So what were you gonna say, Danny?
I was just going to ask what everyone's favorite counterplay was.
I was going to ask the same question.
Well, great minds think alike.
Yeah, so we'll start with Danny. Favorite counterplay from the new set?
It's not even a question. It's Chompa the Trickster.
And what deck do you think it's going to be played in?
I mean, Janemba.
Okay.
I think that's the one that we'll see the most.
All right. Brian?
So I've got a 1A and a 1B. And I didn't have that initially. That was your fault. It was all your fault. 1A is an unexpected turn, and the deck it's going to be played in is any deck made on DBS decks or Shenron's Lair.
So you mean when I
they might as well just write the algorithm that automatically starts your you want to build a new deck, it automatically puts 2 of those in the side. It's there. And honestly, that brings up a great point, sidebar. If you're not building 65 card decks these days in a competitive scenario, then you're behind the curve on deck building. All decks should be thought of as 65 card decks going competitively.
Fun fact,
1B is the one that you don't like, which is Hidden Power of the Saiyans.
Okay.
I like it, provided it's paired with Preemptive Strike. So your opponent always has to think about both of those coming into play.
Sure. Shane?
So I'm gonna leave out an unexpected turn because that kind of feels like the cheap answer.
Right, because it's kind of obvious.
Gonna be like it's gonna be a sideboard staple. So feeling like picking that feels really cheap. So I think from a competitive standpoint, that's gonna impact the meta the most is gonna be Denial of Hope.
Okay. Obviously, like Shane said, unexpected turn is the most obvious good one, but my favorite is Vegeta the Cruel. The reason why I said you're going to see it in a tier 1 deck is right here. You're going to see it coming from me.
Hey, when you top Orlando, right?
Right, exactly.
So Markus knows how to top.
Look, man, I did it more than you up front, okay? Mr. Sassy Pants.
So
I'm not going to be sassy, man. We are going to be here. We are all team going to make sure that Markus tops.
Yeah,
Did anybody Markus over his non-invite having stuff?
Look, man, I've won 2 metal cards. What have you won?
He got a mat and he got one of those fancy other cards. What were they, like an American Express?
Oh, me? Yeah. And I got that food that I sold for like $100 and something.
Alrighty,
I just want the record to show real quick. I don't build side decks until the night of the event.
We need to fix that. But regardless, in conclusion, I think competitive scene is going to be fine. Someone's going to pick up where ARG has left off, and we're going to be okay. There's no big deal there. Set 7 is looking super interesting. These counterplays are going to have a big impact on the game, and there's going to be a lot more player interaction than there has been in the past. We're still going to have some of the same problem decks. Some of the old decks are going to come back with new life, but as a whole, it's going to be. I think it's going to be fun. Do y'all have anything you want to say before we close?
I think we covered everything.
I think on these topics, I think the bow has been tied.
Shane?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This has been the GnG Elite Dragon Ball Super Team, just with another weekly discussion. And we hope to see you again. Stay elite.